Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Many of us are careful, conscious about what we say around others. Might you realize what you're saying may be coming nonverbal, and you may be sending a signal, sending a message, and not even realizing that that message is out there and really not showing you in your best light? We're going to talk about body language today, nonverbal cues. It's all part of your image, and that's what she helps people with as a consultant and trainer at her company, which is fantastic. She is Karen Brunger. She's back with us. Welcome, Karen. How you doing?
Hi, Steve. I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you. And we've talked about color, we've talked about style, we've talked about how you teach others to do this. I always forget what you're known for. I know it's connected to color palette. There's a name for it. What's that name?
Oh, like color analysis? Is
Thank
that
you.
what you're thinking of? Okay.
Yeah, you and International Image Institute, your business is sought after around the world for being the expert in doing the color analysis. So we've talked about all of that. We've never talked about body language
Mhm.
in all of the imaging that we project out there. Uh, there's things that people are doing that they don't even realize they're sending a signal to others, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I know you and I have talked quite a bit before in our other sessions about energy.
Yes.
So and so when it comes to body language, it really our body language is in alignment with our state of mind, with what's really going on inside of us. And so what's really cool is that we can, if we when we change our thinking and our feeling, then our body language automatically changes. We can also do it the other way, like reverse engineer. And when we change our thinking and feeling, then our body language changes. So they're always in alignment. So if we deliberately make our body like sit as if, that we're so confident, that we feel fantastic, that we're in love with the world, and we sit that way, and we put our posture into that position, then we'll start to feel that way, right?
Hmm.
Or when we feel that way, then our body will match it. So it goes hand in hand. So it's we can use body language as a way to initiate or bring on a certain internal state. If we want to feel more confident, for example, then we can make sure our body is straight and confident, that our chin is parallel to the floor, right? There's so many things that we can do to appear confident, and when our body language is confident, then that helps us to feel confident as well.
And you get that response from others
Right,
because
right.
you're portraying a feeling of confidence, whether you are or not. Um, so many of us have bad posture, myself included. And isn't it interesting when you identify that you don't have the greatest posture, thinking of sitting up straight, soldier proud, as my fitness trainer calls it, that it almost feels weird and awkward. Like you're putting on a show. No, but you're just acting like you should. Your posture is the way it should be, but it almost feels foreign or exaggerated because you're not used to doing that. Does that make sense?
It does. And there was a celebrity, I can't remember who, um, I think it was Cary Grant actually, that said, however you think most often is what you tend to become. So, or however you act most often is what you tend to become. So when you act confident, even though it might feel strange or not natural or not authentic, when you do it often enough, you practice it, then it becomes you, and you're no longer trying to do it. You're no longer thinking about it. It just becomes natural. Right.
And that goes in line with the properties of manifestation, if you want to call it that, where what you think becomes your reality. So why not think you're something, even though you may not be there yet? What do you got to lose? I'm a big proponent of these words when it comes to dressing. Dress the part, get the part. If you want people to respect you in a certain way, you need to dress that way when you attend a function, whatever it might be. And this is just me, I always dress one notch above what I think the dress is going to be. You don't want to overdo it, show up with a suit, at the beach. But you want to, take it like a notch up. And even when it comes down to, I have casual shoes, I have dressier shoes. There are some times I'll wear that dressier shoe with jeans, even if it's a casual shirt, it just takes it up one notch. It looks fun, but it's one notch above.
Yes.
Just to be mindful of those things.
Yeah.
Can we talk about body language?
Sure.
Things that people do that they don't realize that they're sending a signal to other people by doing it.
Where we see a lot of them are in situations where people might appear nervous. So if they're speaking in front of an audience, for example, or in a meeting, that's where some of the telltale signs would be. Sometimes it could be like playing with something. If they have a pen in their hand and they're clicking the pen, or people with change in their pockets and they're jingling their pockets. We call that happy pockets. So in other words, like a nervous gesture with their hands where they're doing something and they don't realize they're doing, but it's distracting. And that's a sign of nervousness, or that a sign of that they're not really easy with the situation. So that's one of them. There's so many of them.
How about this one?
Okay, so that's interesting. So you see, you have one hand on the outside of your arm and one hand tucked inside. Mm-hmm. So that's like defensively protecting yourself. So the one on the outside, you're defending yourself. The one on the inside, you're protecting. You're protecting, like hugging yourself. Because there's two ways to cross arms. One is to put your arm. You can't see my whole body.
Like this.
One way is to put your hands on the outside of your arms, and the other is to put your hands up underneath your armpits, right? So when you put them in your armpits, like that's like you're feeling like very vulnerable, and you need to take care of yourself, and please don't attack me. It's like protecting the underbelly. But then when we put our hands on the outside of our arms, that's now we're setting up a barrier. Like, don't cross this barrier.
I never realized that even made a difference. I just look at it as somebody is closed off. And if you want to believe in energy, you're blocking energy. You're blocking.
Well, you are. And right? You know what? So I do this in my classes. This is actually one of the things I teach when I teach body language. We do it in front of the room. It's so amazing. So I'll have a volunteer come up to the front with me, and they'll actually even close their eyes, so they won't even know what's happening. I'll have the whole audience cross their arms like a barrier. I'll muscle check the person. I think we've talked about muscle checking before, where I press down the person's arm. When everybody has their arms crossed, their arm goes down. So in other words, when we cross our arms, we're de-energizing the room. If everybody in the room has their arms crossed, it also works with legs crossed. We're taking the energy out of the room. And so it's like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. Can we just get out of here? Okay, so when I do my workshops and so on and do my trainings, I invite everybody to please have open body language, because that increases the energy of the room.
Say that last part again.
When you have open body language, when your arms are open, when your legs are not crossed, when you have the proper posture and everything happening, then that increases the energy. Then energy is allowed to flow, and then you're open. You're open to whatever's happening. You can take in new ideas, and it helps the energy in the room to expand.
This is what we don't realize about the exchange of energy. Many just think, crossing your arms, you're just closed off. You're sending a signal. I'm not receptive to what you're saying, but energetically, it even runs deeper here. What are some of the other things, Karen, that we should be mindful of when it comes to our body language?
Okay. The other thing to watch out for, and again, this is from an energetic perspective, are any downward movements. So if you do a downward swipe in the, so it's like no, like for example, doing that downward no, that really de-energizes the room. So actually, because I've done that, I'm now going to go upward movements to bring the energy back up for people. So downward movements, whoever you're doing it to, or even just anybody in the room, you're de-energizing them. It's actually a move used in martial arts to decrease the strength of your opponent so that your technique can have more power. So if you're ever being attacked, then yes, do a downward movement. But if you want people to feel good around you and you want to lift people up, then do upward movements. One time I was attending a workshop, and the workshop leader said, he didn't understand it, why people at the end of his workshop, they got healed, and people could even walk out without their cane or their crutches. And he didn't understand it, that this powerful healing was happening. But he said what he did at the end of every workshop was do upward movements all around the room. Just kept doing upward movements. So upward movements is incredibly energizing and healing, and expands energy and lifts people to a higher vibration. So upward movements.
Interesting. And I'm trying to apply that in a situation like, let's say you're addressing a room.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do with upward movements that looks natural?
Okay, so like bringing your arms up. So you're talking to somebody, and you bring your palms facing up. So bring your hands up to talk, right? So let's all do this.
Right. So we're just going to talk about this today. It's a very important topic. This brings back a memory. This is going way back. Howie Mandel, and maybe he still does this, but he definitely did it in the early days of his career. During his stand-up, he would go like this. Like Howie, he was like, it's a crazy thing that people do, but it was an upward movement. So maybe subconsciously he was lightening up the room by using that hand gesture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would do it.
These are cool tips. What else you got?
Okay, let's see. What else do I have? Here's another one. Having the body out of alignment. So out of alignment, when sometimes we're just kind of leaning over on one leg, or we might be leaning against a wall, or some public speakers might lean on the podium. Anytime we're leaning over on one side, that also de-energizes the room. So it sucks energy out of the room. It de-energizes us. It makes people who are listening to us bored. So that's another one that's not very helpful.
Interestingly, one might think that is making you look more casual, like when you're leaning on the podium addressing people. And there's, I see the positive aspect of that, but that it's more effective to take control of the podium if you're standing addressing people, and now you're in alignment.
Okay, and so to that point, there is a time when leaning to one side works, but doing it to help make a point. So there are different types of presentation or communication styles. And there's one particular style which I call the charmer. And the charmer part of that style is to casually, like leaning on a chair, or hand on a hip. So there are different ways of doing it, kind of masculine ways, feminine ways, and then non-binary ways of leaning, where it's now what you're doing is engaging with the audience, because as you say, you're being casual. So it kind of opens it up, say, hey, I'm just going to it's a little bit almost can be a flirtatious, or you're having fun, you're being a little bit playful, but then you're doing that body language just for that length of time while you're making that point. And now you shift into your power body language, or whatever it is that's appropriate for what you're talking about.
Karen, I have no idea what you're talking about. No. That was a lame attempt in limited space to do that. What about the eyes tell everything, windows to the soul, right? What are some thoughts there about body language and the eyes?
So the eyes. So there's a saying: whoever can make eye contact the longest is the one in control. But the thing is, then it can become invasive. You're invading somebody's space if you never look away. Also, because when we look away, it's because we're gathering information. So where we look, the direction that we look is indicative of what kind of information we're accessing. You might have heard about that. And so, but not being able to maintain eye contact is, of course, signs that we're not confident, or that we're having a hard time with this communication.
100%. Yeah. If you can't look somebody in the eye, or if you just feel awkward or vulnerable with that eye contact, even in normal life, walking into a Starbucks, many of us don't really look at somebody else. We just go in, maybe a glance or whatever, but we never lock eyes with the barista or the person next to you. I think it's because we're afraid to be vulnerable, and we're all kind of in our own little bubble around there. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is a way to create that personal space so that we're not invading somebody else's space when we do that. But
Mm.
sometimes when we do make eye contact and smile, then we're engaging with that person. Then we're becoming human, like acknowledging each other's humanness and for that moment. And so it can be nice. It's also very cultural, right? If we make eye contact and smile at strangers, that not every culture would be comfortable with that. So, yeah. And I just
Mm.
thought of another thing too that we do, that people do maybe unconsciously when they are not feeling confident in their situation. So there are different, people have different ways of doing it. So what some people do when they're feeling not very confident is they overcompensate. And so what they do is they put their chin up, but then, so it's almost like they're talking down their nose. So they put on a sense of superiority so that they feel better in that communication. But when we raise our chin and we're talking down our nose at someone, then other people, that we're not creating an authentic, warm partnership with that person. Other people will lower the chin. And so they're talking from, more from the forehead. And so
Mm.
they're compensating with they're doing the sense of inferiority, where I'm not, please don't look at me. I might not measure up. And so they lower the chin and look down. So those are two things to see in people when they're not feeling really confident. They might lower the chin and come across as inferior. They might raise a chin and come across as superior. But ideally, we have our chin parallel to the ground, because then we're open and equal, and we're here for each other.
Do you find that, going back to the posture thing before, that many of us can't do this or don't do these things because it seems awkward? Like even keeping your chin at the right level seems kind of weird, just being mindful of that. But that's the way it should be, because we're so used to walking around like this, or just
Looking at our phones.
or looking at our phones. Yeah, you're right about that. How about when you're public speaking, always a challenge for many of us. How do we accent points when we're speaking with somebody using body language?
Okay, there's different ways of doing that. So one presentation style is called being the straight shooter. So when we're the straight shooter, we're being straight with somebody, and we are telling the truth. And so then we can have our hands like even straight. And so our hands are straight in front of us. So I'm being straight with you right now. So our voice is straight. Our eyebrows are straight. Our faces, like, very, there's is like nothing going on with it. Everything is very straight. So I am being straight with you. This is the way it is. And so we're emphasizing with our hands this way. That's one way. So that's a straight shooter. And that's probably how most public speakers, that'll be their go-to presentation style when they really want to get their point, across.
It brings back a memory. This is going to show my age. And I know you're in Canada, but there was a politician in the United States, and I am not a crook.
Right. Yeah.
That's how it was delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things that you don't realize, but now that we're hearing the secrets, to pick up on those things, and very natural, to illustrate a point.
Right.
That one duly noted. What else that
Okay,
we can
there's
do?
another style called the director, and that style is more for if, like, the world is about to come to an end and we need people to take action now. And so then it's like a pounding thing or a karate chop, and then the eyebrows might go down and the voice goes stronger and louder. And it's like, pound. It's like, we have to do this. And so it's a very strong, powerful, directive tonality. It's like, okay, we better do it. But again, you're not going to do a whole presentation that way. That's to, like, although
Illustrate a point. Illustrate a
some
point.
people, yeah, but some people, like, so we all have our natural communication style that we go to. For some people, it is the director. It can be a little bit exhausting because I know I've sat through listening to a speaker that's their preferred style, and that's how they are throughout their presentation, is really dictator, really telling us what to do.
Can't overdo that one. You got to be
Yeah,
careful.
you have to be a
Yeah.
little careful with that one.
Would you say, Karen, that when you're addressing people or even someone, that hand gestures are very important?
Yes, yes. And how we use our hands, and also, in our business of dressing people, sometimes we have, we're getting close to people as we're putting clothes on them. We need to ask permission first. Is it okay if I, help you put this on? Is it okay if I put this cape on you, whatever it is we're doing? Is it okay and so asking permission, that we're acknowledging that we're about to invade their space. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Um, well, I'm not putting capes on people. That's, I could see that with you and what you do in color draping,
Yeah.
and all of that. Got literally a minute or so left. Any final tips? I love these. These are fantastic, and memorable and easy and very effective. Anything else? Last minute things
I
that
think,
got floating out
okay,
there?
I guess the thing would be, to feel to shift our internal state to be how it is that we want to be, and then our body language will follow that. So focus on how we want to feel, and then allow it to happen.
So, would you say somebody has a presentation they're going to make in front of a room of, say, 50 people? They're not totally comfortable, but they've done their homework and they have everything in front of them. Should you visualize who you want to be? For example, I want to be credible. I want to take charge, but also I want to seem human. And I want to come off as being a nice person, maybe a little bit funny, lighten things up. Should you think those things going into it?
Yes, yes. So be in that state. So sometimes if you know somebody who's like that, who presents in a way that, wow, I would love to present that way, then
Hmm.
just breathe it in, allow that person to come into your body. It's almost like that, where
Almost like you're channeling them.
you're almost like you're channeling them, and then you can go out there and you can and be that. Part of it is believing that you can be that. It's allowing it. Some people get so shut down by fear that they don't even open up to allowing it. So it's like, I allow this to happen, that it's possible for me to for this to happen. And that's where imagining it beforehand, like doing the creative visualization before getting up in front of an audience. So imagining the whole thing first before you actually get up. And if you can, whatever you can imagine, then of course you can make that happen, because your central nervous system believes you already have made it happen. And whatever you've done before, you can do again.
I make it a regular habit if I'm going to go somewhere or do something like any of the stuff that we're talking about, or even just hanging out at a function. I visualize it before I get there. I'm already there. I already did it. It's already done. I see it. And I feel like it's so much more comfortable. You're better prepared with little things pop up because you already had a foundation for what you were going to do. And I guess it also comes into play with the body language that we're talking about. To your point, see it in your mind who you want to be. And it's almost as if your body just follows along.
Right, right.
Hmm. Wow. A lot of great tips today. Love it. Like, I'm not going to forget these, and I don't think others will either. How do we connect with you, Karen? You offer so much in helping people with their image, branding, and of course, you teach all of this. How do we find you?
Okay, I'm at imageinstitute.com. So people can email me, Karen Brunger, at imageinstitute.com. That would be the easiest.
It would be imageinstitute.com.
Right.
See how I did that?
Yeah.
I illustrated a point if you didn't see. Uh, Karen, thank you so much for being here today, and looking forward next time we talk.
Thanks. It was fun.
Same. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.